In 1917, Steiner held a lecture about nervousness. And he spoke about the relationship of thinking, feeling, and willing, which usually in a healthy state is held together by the I, holding these three soul forces. And when the I is too weak, on the one hand, you would have a somersaulting into one another, a word made up by Steiner. And on the other hand, you would have dissociation, which we call nowadays. And he drew a sketch and you see in the middle the I holding the three lines together of thinking, feeling, and willing. On the left-hand side, there is this somersaulting into one another. And on the right-hand side is the dissociation. So I can see Marina has says there's no English translation. I'm carrying on speaking just in case it is working. So we want to see how willing works into this. There are illnesses which are usually with the that are treated with psychoanalysis. On the right-hand side is the state that you can go into when you have supersensible experience. And the I is not yet strong enough in the supersensible world to hold thinking, feeling, and willing together. So nowadays, you can take another perspective that the left-hand side are the neurotic illnesses, and on the right-hand side, you would have the dissociative phenomena. And if you look at this more specifically at the anxiety, at the fears, there's somersaulting into one another, where the I is not strong enough to hold the three soul forces in order. When there's panic and shame, and on the right-hand side, the conditions could be more together with agoraphobia or concern or care, and a quality which you can generally, that is on the left-hand side, is more towards the past. Shame is something which is has a basis of a situation which you couldn't manage and you're afraid to meet something new. And on the other side, it's fear. And it's more about what the future brings. So the unknown of what is going to happen in the future, what could happen in the future. And to agoraphobia, or to care and concern, worry. And that's the basic picture. about these anxieties. And when one looks back, looking at the cases treated with psychoanalysis, looking at Freud's book of hysteria, you can see that there were dissociative conditions there. So that in a certain way you could extend that on both sides, in relation to the past or to the future. In relation to what psychotherapists or psychoanalysts are working with their patients, and with all the different anxiety conditions. And now the question is, how do the exercises out of the little booklet, Nervousness and the Eye, so now we go to the next slide. And here we, in a more differentiated way, form the different forms of nervousness, how they are taken up in the ABSR program. And on the other side, the actual exercises, the related exercises. And if you look at the forms of nervousness, when one has a mild forgetfulness, then being able to, or not being able to be master of one's movements, or not having enough interest with this soul kernel. And in the dissociative dimensions, the people don't have any orientation in memory, and this appears as an forgetfulness. They can't enter into their own movements. And in extreme cases, this means being frozen at the eye. The eye can't work into the warmth, and the person is therefore cold. And one actually can get into a state of shock, of total lack of movement, of a freeze. And the third one, it's clear that one has no orientation. One doesn't know what has just happened, what has caused my dissociation. And these phenomena come into the fears and anxiety, in generalized anxiety, and also in agoraphobia, or in conditions where these dissociative situations come up. And the exercises, the practical everyday exercises from ABSR that are related to these, are in order to improve the forgetfulness. You can train yourself that you so-called hide an object somewhere, not in a regular place where you would normally keep it, but somewhere where you would not normally keep it. Put it somewhere in an unusual place. And in order to master your movements, you would write in a way that is more like painting, like picturing. Writing is a very fine motor skill. And for number 3, if you allow your thoughts to run backwards, so run a story backwards, run an activity backwards. See it in pictures, but see it going backwards. And now we come to the other side, where this somersaulting into one another happens. And the 4th point has 2 aspects. One aspect more into dissociation, and the other one into this somersaulting into one another. And the nervousness and I says a nervousness of body movements and gestures. This lecture was 1912 in January, and this was before the First World War. And Rudolf Steiner describes this, that the politicians were, he said they were behaving as though they had drunk alcohol, even if they hadn't drunk alcohol, because of this nervousness of their movements. On the exercises, there are 2 elements to this. So your activities that you do, you observe them from the outside, or else you hold back so that you don't do certain activities. And the 5th point is probably more obvious, but it is connected with what one used to call hysteria, which is a very general concept for the neuroses. And here, one would have difficulty with desires. You do see this in a lot of the psychiatric illnesses, psychosomatic illnesses, but you cannot do without certain wishes and desires. When you have vegetative metabolic illnesses, and these are connected with shame, people notice that something wasn't right, quite good, and then they feel shameful. And the exercise that is related to that is to quell one's meaningless wishes. So don't wish too much. If you have rather large wishes, so I would rather say I'll wait till my next coffee comes. So for those things where one uses to fill the holes, rather wait and see if you can do without. And the next point, having difficulties to make decisions, that you would be very impulsive into your activities. And what is obviously helpful is to weigh them up, weigh them up. And the last one, go back to the slide, is the soul. The Steiner refers to somebody who he calls Zappel Fritz, somebody who's all over the place in his thinking. He can't decide, he can't make a judgment, and therefore he can make too many judgments. And if you observe people and also observe yourself, how many times during the day you have to make a judgment, and that you are not able to look at this with a certain objectivity, that you would judge somebody who didn't do something very well. And so here, only criticize when it is rightful, and to notice when you judge something too quickly. So these 7 qualities, Steiner spelled them out. And I'd like to show you something where Steiner talks about the soul life. He speaks about 7 layers, or rather 8 layers, and that one can order these 7 exercises in this way. So you can see there are 8 different layers. Seven of those you find in this small book, Nervousness and the Eye. So you see the sense organization. Green is in intelligence. Yellow is the brain and the thoughts. Red is the memory. Deep red is feeling. Violet are the desires, and blue-green is the will. And what I didn't put in was positivity, and that is imaginative thinking. So that through all these exercises, you will strengthen your imaginative thinking. So when we summarize this, we have a relationship to polarities, to stress reaction, and then also to shame and panic. And this supports the eye activity. So ABSR, activity-based stress reduction. And in this way, we can overcome these one-sided tendency. And we are working towards a free eye decision-making power. And so support the activity of the human being. And Steiner always said that these exercises are good, that you wouldn't do it just for yourself, but you would do it with other exercises. Even when you're doing exercises, you don't want to be one-sided. If you're just doing head exercises, then it's very good to do body exercises. And it's well known that in this ABSR program, that for instance, the awareness exercises, that they are connected with yoga. And we know Steiner developed eurythmy. So we could ask, how do we get from these exercises to the appropriate eurythmy gestures? And this was a discovery that the exercises of these 7 exercises are connected to the eightfold path, which Steiner spoke about, wrote about, and he called them the exercises for the week, that originally came from Gautama Buddha. And we know, of course, that the 7 days of the week are related to the planets. And we know the planets are related to the vowels in eurythmy. So for those of you who don't know this, if you speak of the days of the week, you always have the planetary aspects connected to this. So when you begin with Sunday, it's the sun, and with Monday, it's the moon. And Tuesday relates to Mars, which is Tuesday. And the French for Wednesday is Mercredi, which is Mercury. And Thursday, Thor. And Friday with Venus, Freya, Venus. Saturday, Saturn. Saturday, Saturn. So in all different languages, these clues are there, that the 7 days of the week are connected to the planets. And Steiner then had the vowels connected to the planets. So in this way, you can find a connection to the healing quality. So we began with a hypothesis, and the more we practiced it, the more we found this to be true, and that we found that we could pass it on to other people. So that's my introduction. Is there something that we need to take up? Comments? Questions? Are there any questions from the guests? So our course is a self-help course. It's not therapeutic treatment, but it is helping people to help themselves. We are not offering diagnoses. We are not offering therapy, but we are offering a program where you can work with yourself, working with these exercises from the nervousness and I, where you can do these exercises and connect them to eurythmy. So if there are no further questions, then I will do some exercises with you. You can sit and do the exercises. You can stand and do the exercises, so that you would and this is a little taster for the actual course that is coming, because not everybody knows these exercises. So we've probably all had the experience that our soul and right into our body, that we can have joy, we can have sadness, and that our body can give us problems just as much as it can give us joy. And when I put the thought out there, I open myself to the world, that this opening to the world allows that the world streams into me, then that is our thought. And some people may have a feeling. So this feeling or this thought has a gesture. I open myself. I open myself to the world. I do it again, so I can feel how it feels, where from my heart I open myself. And sometimes I don't open myself as much. Sometimes I open myself fully, my whole heart. And the world can overwhelm me. It could be too much. But this gesture, I learn to form this gesture. Today I open myself to that much. And I invite friendly that it comes towards me. And in this way, I'm not completely overwhelmed by the world. Then there's another soul condition where I am very interested and I want to unite myself with them through my love and my interest and connect my being with their being. And this gesture, from my whole heart, I want to embrace. I want to embrace you. I want to unite with you. I want to understand you. It's a different gesture saying I'm going to open myself to the world and to allow the world to stream into me. I open myself to the world, and the world streams into me. And the next gesture, with this gesture, am interested in you. I love, I send you my love. I connect with you. I want to understand you. I want to understand this other world completely different from me. And we don't take the whole world. We take a part of the world. That is an important aspect of our path with these exercises in our daily life. And there might be a moment where I'm afraid of something. I would contract. I might even lose myself. And in this way, I feel myself. And to protect myself against the other thing which is bigger than me, to protect myself, I am here, I stand upright. And in this way, we could think these gestures in one aspect, they seem like geometry, a circle, an angle, two lines that cross each other. I open myself to the world. I invite this bit of world to stream towards me. I want to unite myself with that which I'm interested in, that I love. I want to hold myself upright. I don't want to lose myself. Something is too big for me, but I'm not going to lose myself. And this connection of my experience with my gesture is a very important part of these exercises. In the course, in the notes of the course, which you will receive if you join the course, and you can choose to what extent you're going to learn these exercises. Whether you're going to say, I'm going to do one of these exercises, or I'm going to say, I'm going to do the whole exercise program. So now I'd like to share something about the whole course as a whole. And I would ask Theodore that the camera would go back to as it was previously. So in this course that will be running in September, October, we would like to reach a very wide public. On the homepage, on the German or English homepage, on the ABSR International, you see a very wide offer. And that means with this course, we want to reach a wide audience, people who suffer stress in very many different ways. For those who might be suffering from cancer-related fatigue, or anxiety and fears, teachers, people who are working, people who are in organizations, parents, or all single moms, single parents, men meeting in a men's group. So in our course, Harald Haas and I, Adele Waldmann, we will accompany you those people who have anxiety and fear. But there are other offers where you might find a more personal need. So this is a very open offering. We want to have a wide public, a wide audience. And we also want to have a research project with the ABSR program from the University of Bern that we'd like to carry out. And in this research project, so this means that those people taking part 3 times during the course, you would fill out a questionnaire, and afterwards you would fill out a questionnaire. And this is actually a plus for those participating because it gives you a moment of self-reflection. And maybe Theodore would show us the questionnaire. The questions relate to paying attention to oneself, awareness, and the amount of stress that you have. It is a completely anonymous questionnaire. You can use it for yourself to assess yourself so you can see how your stress is being reduced. She's asking Theodore to put the questionnaire up. You need about 15 minutes to fill this out. So the questionnaire is sent to the participants. So it's not just about how helpful is our work, how effective is our work, but it is also used that we can tailor our product, tailor our offer to our guests. So there are these daily exercises out of the lecture by Steiner, Nervousness and the Eye. And then there are the exercises. Exercises out of Eurythmy for You. Each week there are these daily exercises and the different eurythmy exercises, and then a review of the week, review of the different exercises related to the different exercises. And these notes are available all the time so that you have a good basis for your work. So unrelated to the trainer, there is, depending on how big the groups are, that will make the difference according to how much participation is possible from the different participants. There will be breakout rooms and there will be a chat during the week. So depending on the size of your group, there will be different styles to be able to use different styles. Some groups are limited. Our group does not have a limit, but of course it does depend on how many people. And there will be the possibility of talking about the exercises in small groups and then speaking about it in a plenum together. In our preparation, we had a few questions focusing on the psychosomatic reactions. I would be very happy if people would if there are any questions that are not about diagnosis and not about therapy, but any questions relating to this course. We welcome any questions. If we can't answer them today, we will gather them up and share them at the next webinar. So if there are no questions, so there was a question that had a general aspect of the high sensibility. In German, they don't have a good word for it. The high sensitivity patients, oversensitive patients, and the relationship to the fears. The body has a different relationship since 1721. That each organ is not just a solid organ, but also has life forces, especially the heart, that it is released and it is connected with the forces, for instance, building up the brain, and that with various health problems, that with different problems that the life forces would be affected. And that is the vegetative, the metabolic, sympathetic nervous system, and in the last century, Steiner prophesied that this loosening of the members up till the end of our century, that this would take place. And of course, this is it happens in different people in different ways at different times. Jung spoke about this. He published things that he said about 10% of the people in his time had oversensibility, and an American spoke about 20% of the people. Nowadays, researchers speak about much more, and that this is happening more with children than with adults. So developing fears is becoming more and more common nowadays. We need this development because of this sensitiveness of soul. We're able to develop our world out of the dead end that we seem to be running into. And this is not something which we should push away, but this is a new task of how to work with this. And when one looks at this from the outside, we have the impression we need a new culture. We need a new way of working with the screen time. And obviously the young people are those who are affected so much by this. People who are mostly on screen time with their handies or laptop or various machines. And that they are the people who are most at risk of fears and anxieties. So we need a new culture, not going in this direction, not going into the direction of man and machine melting into one another. So this is not just an individual issue, but it is very relevant for our society. And if you look at the statistics of the amount of, from an economical point of view, of the pre-industrial society, of fears and anxiety and depression, really started after the industrial revolution. So in the post-industrial society, it's 20 to 40% now. That we're at risk of suffering a rather grave illness. And so the ABSR wants to offer a cultural aspect to society. So we'd like to thank you all very warmly for your interested attention, and any questions that come now, we will take this up at our next webinar. A very good evening to you all. Go well.